great to be with you all. And I've kind of been looking at the conference agenda thinking this is really good set of sessions. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm not sure if you have all managed to come along to those training sessions that Astrid mentioned. My name's Andy Moore. I've worked for the Green Party in various capacities, most recently on the London campaign for Sian Berry in her campaign for Mayor. I'm just about to start work for Bristol Green Party on the campaign for Bristol Mayor. And as Astrid said, I've run the national training programme for Action Network. So before we jump into just having a workshop and a chat about how we can fix a few things that we might have problems with, I thought it'd be a good idea to just have a quick update on where we are with the rollout of Action Network. So hopefully it'll be useful, and I will recap a few things that you might already know, but I think sometimes it's just useful to go over a bit of ground just to make sure we're all on the same page. So I'll go to my screen. So hopefully you can see that now. And yeah, so where are we on with the latest?
Sorry, just to mention, I hope everyone is okay with me recording this session. If you don't want to be on the video, you can turn it off, but I forgot to mention that at the beginning. Yeah, that's great. It seems everybody's okay with that. Sorry, carry on.
Oh, that's fine. Okay, so just a quick recap on why we're actually moving. Why are we going through all this pain and suffering of the transition? So we've been using Civi for around a decade, and it's starting to really show its age. It's causing us all sorts of problems behind the scenes, and yeah, the membership team are really struggling to hold things together. And one of the other reasons we're moving is that because Civi is quite an old version now, it's a security risk. And of course, there's lots of personal information held in Civi. And as time goes on, that data becomes more vulnerable to attack. And so that's one other reason that we need to move away from Civi. And of course, there's a load of opportunity as well. So Civi, because it's quite an old system, in many ways, it holds us back from making use of some of the new campaign tools that are available. So kind of need to move with the times. And then in terms of what Action Network does, if you're on this session, you're probably fairly familiar with this, but just to go through it again. So the important thing to realise, it's a campaigns tool first. So it's not just a like-for-like replacement of Civi. It's trying to do something a bit different, really, trying to be more than what Civi did. So exciting new functions. So things like having petitions, that's something that we've never really had for ourselves in the Green Party. Event forms and being able to charge people for entry, that's a useful new function. Fundraising pages, that is a very useful tool. Email your MP. Now, this is something that we've not really started using in the Green Party, but I'm hoping we're able to make use of that in the next few months once we go live more widely. Advanced targeting, so we can get a bit more clever about how we send, who we send our emails to, and then automatic emails. So this is something that's quite exciting and something that, again, we've never had before. And just on a more practical basis, literally just sending an email through Action Network is so much easier than Civi. Civi is very temperamental and falls over quite a lot. I'm sure you found that. And so Action Network just works, and that's nice. And there are things like having MailChimp style tools that we've never had before. MailChimp, if you're not familiar with that, it's kind of the market leading email send tool. And when you're building an email in MailChimp, it's very nice. It's got a very nice user interface. And so we've got that kind of thing available now in Action Network. One of the really useful things is that we've got different lists available to us. So people, instead of when they unsubscribe, they're not unsubscribed from every Green Party email now. They can customize whether they want to receive emails just from the local party, but maybe not from the national party, and that kind of thing. So it gives us a bit more control. And in large local parties, we can start to do clever things like have subgroups. So in Bristol and in Brighton, they've got different ward groups that they've got set up different lists. Like I say, it's a membership tool second, campaigns tool first, but it does the job for membership. And the other useful thing about it is that it's built with GDPR compliance in mind. So just out of the box, it just works. So that kind of provides us with a safety net. and make sure that we stay compliant. And then just behind the scenes a little bit more, just to let you know what's going on in the background. So Action Network, it's not actually the Green Party's membership database. So we are bringing a new membership database called Salesforce. Now, none of us will probably ever see Salesforce. Only a limited number of staff will actually have access to this tool, basically because every license that we need is very expensive. So I will never have access to Salesforce. None of us probably will, but it actually doesn't really matter too much because Salesforce and Action Network kind of just plug in together, and all the data that is in Salesforce can be made available in Action Network. It's kind of synced across using some technical stuff. So that's really useful. And the other good thing is that we've got a new payments processor. Now that might sound a bit dull, but a lot of the membership team's time was going around chasing up membership payments that hadn't quite worked and having to do lots of manual work. So that kind of frees them up a lot. You may have seen this. It's a new tool called ChargeB. It started to send emails out to members. I've had one or two. You might see it. And so we're going through a phase transition. So phase one was getting local parties set up in Action Network. That's now done. Enabling local parties to actually start sending emails. That's done. I've said mostly there because I think we've probably found a few niggles still, but it's mostly done. And phase three is the final bit where we complete everything, and that is now underway. So let's go into look at that a bit more detail. Where are we in that transition? So this is kind of a visualization of the timeline over the next few months, 2020 through to 2021. And if we just go back to the start of October, that is when the new membership database Salesforce was switched on, and it all seemed to work. It's gone quite smoothly. And so not long after that, we stopped new members when they signed up. We stopped them from going into Civi, and instead we put them into Salesforce. And so you might have noticed that you've not been really getting many new members through in Civi, and that's why. It's because they've actually been in Salesforce. And since that's happened, we've actually had 1,000 members join the party nationally. So that's been very, very good. And so although members have not been going into Civi, there has been one or two manual updates that the digital team have done to update Civi. So those 1,000 people, I think most of them are now in Civi as well, but they're not in Action Network, just so that you're aware. So that's kind of where we are with that. And throughout October and throughout the rest of November, the digital team are going to be working really hard on just making Action Network go live with all the key information that you need. So I suppose we're getting into towards the middle of November now, and there will be a new join page on the Green Party members on the Green Party site, and there will be a new login page for the members website, making use of these new tools. And then by the end of November, I've been promised that the full data import from Salesforce to Action Network, that will all be done and 100% ready for you to go out and start using. They're hoping to get it done slightly sooner than that, but I think it will definitely be done by the end of November. So all the testing that they've done, that seems to be going to plan. So we're on track. So that's good. And very soon after that, we're going to switch off sending emails through Civi, because basically Civi will no longer have the full membership data in there. So we're going to encourage you to send emails from Action Network only, and the ability to do that in Civi will go away. But you'll still be able to look at Civi if you need to. It will just be kept around as a backup. And then, yeah, hopefully we'll all be like these people, smiling happy greens, merrily sending out emails. And I'm sure, yeah, there's going to be a couple of niggles and that kind of thing. So over the course of the few months following that, then the digital team are going to be working to just clean up all those things and make sure everything is 100% correct. And then somewhere, this is not a precise date, but around the back end of November, possibly, we will actually switch Civi off in full. So that hopefully gives us a long enough time to make sure that Action Network's fully bedded in, everybody's sort of happy. All the data that's in Civi That's not all just going to be deleted. We will archive that off, but it won't be easily available. So if you need to grab anything, I would probably suggest doing it now while you can. After that point, it will be a bit harder to get at it. We'll still have it, but it's just going to be a bit painful to get hold of it. So some of you might be asking, well, why is my data wrong right now in Action Network? So just to kind of explain that a little bit. So the membership in numbers in Civi and Action Network, they're still a bit different, and there's a couple of reasons. So firstly, Action Network won't include people who are unsubscribed in Civi, and it will also not include people who don't have email addresses in Civi. So that's one reason. And the other reason is that Civi and Action Network don't get on very well. And so it's very hard to get the two systems to update. So that's kind of another big reason for that. So what I'd really say is please don't worry about any of that. By the end of November, it will all be sorted. It will all be fine. And so, yeah, all the membership data will be available then. So just to cover what information you can trust in Action Network now, that you can actually use now. So you can obviously use people's names. Hopefully we've not got that one wrong. Email addresses and the physical addresses should be correct. And whether somebody is a member or not. And there are a couple of things that at the moment you might think you can use because they're a field, but actually you can't really trust the information there. So membership type and the number of members you can't really trust right now. Things like dates and phone numbers and officer roles, they're not there at all. So those are the things that you can't use yet. But in terms of what information is coming, once we've got the full data import in November, or the back end of November, so new members will start to arrive in real time as they sign up. You'll be able to see membership type and it will actually be accurate, which is nice. Obviously all the dates and that kind of thing, phone numbers and opt-in, so whether you can actually phone them or not. Things like the ward, council, constituency, all the kind of election stuff that will be there. And your regional party, which is something that's been missing and will be very useful for regional officers. So that's very helpful. And there will be a new membership ID. Probably not something you need to worry about, but it will be there. And there are a couple of fields that are going away. So firstly, the gender field. Now, the reason for this is because basically that field is not very good at the moment in Civi. It's not a field that we mandate people fill in. And so basically, I think sometimes people over rely on that data when actually it's pretty ropey. So we've just taken the decision to switch it off pretty much. Now, who knows? We might find that there are all sorts of problems with doing that, but that's the decision that's been made. Not by me, just before anyone wants to fire any bullets. Yeah, I think if we find that it's a problem, maybe we can do something different. The other thing is membership status. Now in Civi, currently we have new, active and grace as a membership status. But that is not going to be present, I'm afraid, in Action Network. So new members, you'll still be able to identify them based off the date fields, but it just won't have a label saying new. But grace members, that won't be available. And the reason for that, it's not because we don't want to tell you. That's not the reason. The reason is behind the scenes, the way the new payment processor works, it's actually technically not really possible to automatically feed that information across to Action Network. Now, I'm aware that that will probably cause a few issues. And so I suspect that might be something that might have to be looked at again. But all I can say is that's the plan at the moment. Grace is going away. So hopefully it won't cause you too many problems. And don't worry as well, Grace members will still be contacted by the party to encourage them to renew and all that. There's a load of new processes going into place to make sure that happens. So it won't just be a case of we just never talk to them anymore. And I know that some local parties use the notes field in Civi. There's no real way to move that across into the Action Network notes field. So if you make use of that field currently, I would recommend that you do an export of that data now while you can, just so that you've got your own local copy. But most local parties don't use it, but if you do, just be aware. And one more thing. So this is a bit technical, but any fields that are in Action Network currently, but they've got a space in their name, they're going away. So the prime example is local party. If you use that field, we're going to have to change any reports or queries that use that field and change it to local_party. And the reason is, it's just because it's part of the sync, the integration between the two systems of Salesforce and Action Network. You can't have spaces. So we didn't know that at the start. We're just having to correct it now. So there's things like local authority, parliamentary constituency. They will be changed to these new versions. But that's hopefully that's a small thing and might not affect you if you've not done things like reports so far. So before we dive into looking at a few things in the workshop, I thought I'd point you to some information sources just in case useful. So the central information hub is on the members website, Action-Network. So I'm starting on some work for the party over the next few weeks and months, and trying to add to this, expand it and tidy it up a bit. So hopefully it will become more useful over time. And the Slack group is still, I think, really useful. That's the link to join if you're not already in there. You can also contact your field organisers. I mean, FOs, they're learning as they go along, just like everybody really. So they might not instantly know the answers, but they're a good person to ask. For the next few weeks, do feel free to contact me if you've got any issues. There's my email address. And if all else fails, then raise a support ticket. And I know that recently, Action Network support tickets have not been answered very promptly, but as part of the work I'm doing for the party, I'm going to be wading through some of those tickets and trying to sort them out, because there's a bit of a backlog. So hopefully that will resolve that one. So that's everything for now, everything that I wanted to present to you. So hopefully that was useful. And we can dive into either some questions, or we can go into looking at specific issues or problems you're having, or just things that you want to try and do in Action Network.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, just raise your hand. So David raised his hand.
If I run a report, members equals yes, I'm regularly now getting 300 members who are not, I don't think are ours, they're from, we have loads of members in Wimborne, in Dorset. I'm wondering what's the best way to exclude them on emails. Can I do some sort of Boolean logic thing where I'd say if city not equal to Liverpool, exclude?
Yeah, it seems a bit strange if you're getting Dorset members. That's a bit weird, isn't it?
All over the country. It's really weird. I don't understand it at all.
Okay. That might be, I mean, there might be some like just basic data problems there that hopefully will be resolved in November. If that doesn't get resolved, then I would say that's something that we probably need to raise a support ticket for to get that dealt with. But yeah, just in terms of how to target the email so that it only goes to the people that actually are genuinely in your area, we can add some extra logic when we're creating our email. So how about we go into Action Network and actually have a look at how to do this. So if I go to, what's your local party? Did you say Liverpool?
Liverpool, yeah.
Yeah, let's go and do that. So I'm not going to actually go into creating an email. I'm going to create a query because it just gets us to the functionality straight away. I always forget which section it's under. So it's here on the advanced menu. We have this queries tab. Oh, it's moved me out of Liverpool. It does this a lot to me. Here we go. So let's add a query. Now, normally what you would do is you would come down to here and you would say, I want to add in a field value and member equals yes. And so what you're saying is that when you do this, you're getting all sorts of people who aren't actually in Liverpool. So now if we add a rule doing this, again, we'll go down here to field value and we can use these additional fields to change that. So it depends on like what is wrong with your data. Now, I suspect that if you've got people from Dorset, then it might be that there is just a data problem. But sometimes what we find is that if somebody from another local party has signed one of your petitions or something like that, then they will be added to your email list, but obviously they're in a different local party. So one thing that you might do is add a criteria of local party here, and then Liverpool Green Party. And so it has to, both of those rules have to be true in order for the email to go to those people. So that, for most local parties, I think that's a good habit to be in, really, because as I mentioned earlier, Action Network, the kind of operating model is different to Civi. So it's trying to be a campaigns tool. It wants to send to as many people as possible, and it's not really thinking about who's a member and who's not. So we have to add that bit of logic to it. So including that rule about local party, that will help. If you're still finding, though, that you've got people in Dorset as members of Liverpool Green Party, you can add another rule, as you mentioned, to do something perhaps on the city. So the address fields, I think, are, yeah, they're here. So you can use this city, or you can use the zip code as a postcode, really, to try and identify who's actually local to you. So it might be that somebody's next door in a neighbouring borough, and they might actually be interested in your emails, in which case, you know, this might take care of it. So there's various options you can use. You can do it just based off the city. I've not actually tried this. Oh, is this using American? That's not very helpful, is it? What happens if we put Liverpool in here? I've never done this before, as you can tell.
We get Liverpool in Illinois, I think.
Oh, well, there we go. That's not very useful. Okay, well, don't use the city field. Maybe use the postcode instead.
Yeah,
that looks more reliable, doesn't it? But like I say, if you've got members for Liverpool who are based in Dorset, that is technically wrong, and we need to correct the data on that one.
Just to add, I can't remember if I did because what I had to do for the Northwest, I had to choose the 10 local parties in Greater Manchester and 6 parties in the Liverpool City region for the mayoral election. And it works really well. It's amazing that you can just easily select those parties. And the only thing I realized I had to really make sure is to use the right name. So I checked on Action Network what the party was actually really called, because instead of ampersand instead of an end would give you the wrong data, basically, or no data. So what you need to do when you do this selection is to really check the names first of how Action Network displays your party name.
Yeah, so there is also a way you can kind of make it a bit more foolproof. So like where we've got here, Liverpool Green Party, that should work. But if I accidentally put a space on the end, then that would all of a sudden not work anymore, because the string in the database doesn't have that space. And so it will say, oh, this is different, and therefore there's not a match. So you have to be very careful, but there is a way to deal with it. So sometimes you might be familiar with wildcards as like putting like a star after things to make it clear that this is basically, you just want to match anything after the Liverpool. So here in Action Network, you don't use a star, you use %. So if it's Liverpool %, anything that comes after that will match. So if somebody's accidentally in there as like Liverpool and Dorset Green Party, obviously that doesn't exist, but if it did, then it would match anything that was Liverpool Green Party, Liverpool and Dorset, or whatever. So that's sometimes quite a useful thing that you can do.
Great. Are there any further questions you have for your own parties?
Not so much a question as, would it be possible to sort of run through, I know this is probably, I'm showing my beginner status on this, from the start to organizing a mail out? You know, would it be possible to go through those stages, or is that something that's elsewhere and I shouldn't bother you with?
No, yeah, quite happy to. So
thank you.
Let's go back to the homepage. Right. Tina, what's your local party?
Blackpool and Filed.
Blackpool. There we go. So this is what your dashboard will look like when you log in. So generally the easiest
I've
way,
been there, I've just been scared of it.
yeah, well, let's be honest, it's not a very welcoming dashboard, I find. I generally wish it had been designed completely differently, because most of this stuff you don't actually need to use. The most
But I can see the incredible scope of it. It's an amazing tool. It's
yeah.
just, you know, when it's anything new, isn't it? You have to take on board online when you've got a head full of stuff and you're still trying to balance what you were already doing, and then take that time to take it over across to a new system, learn it, and you feel there's been then too big a pause between, you know, the focus on the old system, now the new one, and yeah. Anyway, sorry.
And it's confusing even in itself. So can you see here, we've got an actions button at the top, but we've also got an actions button here.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, that's not great, is it? It's not very well designed. Anyway, so let's say we want to come in here and now send an email. So we've got two options. We can come down to here, which is what we often call the speed dial area. So if you click that email button, it will just take you straight into creating a new email. The other thing you can do is on here. So I call this, up here, I call this the advanced menu. And then this one I call the simple menu, because this is generally more useful, to be honest. So you can click onto emails. Okay, so for your local party, you've not actually sent any emails using this, but sometimes if you have sent emails, then this is a good place to come to, because you can copy old ones and use them as a starting point. But clearly here...
Can I interrupt just on that? Because otherwise I'll forget my question, which is, like, sometimes it's easier, and I suppose it arrives in someone's email box if it comes from one address to one address rather than from Action Network. And I worry about that when I create an email in here, where we're going to do it from Action Network as opposed to just from our local Green Party's address.
Yeah, so we can take care of that as part of sending the email. So if I come now into sending a new one, so you can give it a title, but we don't necessarily need to, so I won't bother. So let's say you're just inviting people to the next party meeting. I'm sure you'd give it a more interesting subject than that, but it'll do. So who's it from? It's from Tina. Obviously, you would say probably your full name, and you'd probably say your local party afterwards as well, just so that anybody who doesn't know your name personally knows who it's from. And then this is where your question is answered. So you can specify the email address that it seems to come from. So it might be something like members at Blackpool, I don't know exactly what it is, but something like that, .greenparty.org.uk. And that's how it will appear in the inbox. So hopefully people will trust that when they see it. Now, this is the area where you can actually type in the content of the email, but this is an important one to be aware of. This is the design of the email that is sent out. Now, I can see here, you've only got the built-in email wrapper available to you. Now, this is, if you just use this, the email will look like it's come from Action Network. It's not very well designed, to be honest, very confusing. And so before you start sending emails, you really need to create a email wrapper. Perhaps we can come on to that in a little bit, but maybe I can send you an email afterwards with how to do that.
Thank you.
It's quite straightforward-ish. So once that's done, then what you need to do is select this to make sure that it's branded as Green Party. So let's assume we've done that. And then here we obviously put in all our content of our email. So hi, and then you can use this clips field here to put in their first name. So I'm just going to click that there, and it inserts a bit of code that allows you to say their name. And then you can type in whatever else it is. Please come to our meeting. Yeah, sincerely, Tina. There we go. So it doesn't have to be right, because I'm not actually going to send it. So once you've done that, you can, it's always a good idea to test your email. So use this to test it. This will have your email address here. Click that button and it will send you a copy of the email that will be sent out.
So Clips is directly accessing the information that the member has provided, or that's come through on the system. So if I say name, etc., so it's the stuff that's like, okay, I've got it.
Yeah. So then once you're happy, then you can use this blue button here to save and target your email. So this is where we can decide who to send it to. So this is kind of relating to what David was talking about with the question of how to target the emails. So first of all, it will show you this screen. Now, this is a horrible screen and I don't like it and I wish it wasn't there. So my advice is always use this query mode button here to make it go away and go to the much easier to use query function. And this will allow us to select who we're going to send the email to. So as before, we saw just a moment ago, we need to say, so let's say that we're only sending to members, then we need to scroll down and pick field value. And then in the field name, we need to choose the local party. And so it needs to be the one with the underscore in it, because as I mentioned, this one here, the old one, that's going away. So we need to use this one with an underscore now. Sorry, I'm telling you the wrong thing. The first thing we need to do is say, are they a member or not? And that has to be yes. That is fundamental. If you don't say that, then it will go to everybody. So people who aren't actually members yet. So once you've done that, then you can add a new rule to say, this is where we say what local party they're in. Same again, field value, field address, field name of local party. And here we would put in Blackpool and filed Green Party. Now, as Astrid mentioned, you have to be careful. So I don't know whether in Action Network, your party is called with that name with an ampersand. It might be like that, and it has to be exactly right. And so what you might find it easy to do is just put Blackpool %, because then it will definitely work, whatever comes afterwards. So once you've done that, you can save, preview and send. And it will have a little think, and it will show you kind of the content of the email that you've put together, and it will calculate the number of people based off the criteria that you've just specified. So according to this, 73 people in your local party who are members. And assuming that's all fine, then you you do not have the necessary permissions to send an email. Oh, okay, yeah, because I'm in your local party Action Network, I don't have permission to do it. But otherwise, you just send them, click that button there to send. So hopefully that makes sense, and that's all there is to it. Really
straightforward and helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, pleasure. Right, have we got any other questions in the chat? I saw a few comments, but I've not been able to read.
Yeah, there was a from Molly about Molly, would you be able to pose your question about unsubscribed people?
Yeah, sure. In the training, Andy, you said unsubscribed people won't be listed, and yet on the activist list, the 38 unsubscribed members are there. So I'm just wondering, am I a bit premature? Are you going to sort that out, as you said, by the end of November?
So, okay, so the people that you can see in Action Network who are unsubscribed, they could be there for various reasons. So although in theory, nobody who is unsubscribed in Civi should have been moved across to Action Network, some may have done so. And there's a couple of possibilities. It could be that they were literally just brought across incorrectly. And so what we've then had to do, probably the digital team did it a while ago, they would have then have unsubscribed those people because they recognized, oh, actually, they shouldn't be getting emails through Action Network. And so they will have manually set those people. The other thing is, if you've sent any emails through Action Network, then some people may have just unsubscribed from the Action Network emails.
No, so we haven't actually sent any emails.
You've not sent any? Okay, no. So it won't be that. It's probably just the first one then, where somebody from the digital team accidentally brought some people across and then realized, oh no, I shouldn't have done that, and has then unsubscribed them. Basically, the reason that will have happened is that the setup of Action Network has happened over the course of about 2 years by this point. So there's been lots of trying to make, like, testing how to set it up and finding, oh, actually that didn't quite work as intended. And so that's why there's a bit of a cleanup operation that's required and will happen.
Okay, I did check it yesterday and they're still there. Should I raise a ticket?
No, I think it's fine to have unsubscribed people there. And when we get to the end of November, once everything's all in place, actually all of those unsubscribed people will be suddenly available, because you need to be able to see them. You need to know if they're a member. You might not be able to send emails to them, but you need to be able to see them so you can look up their membership records. So
it'll tell us who is unsubscribed.
That's right, yeah. So should we go and have a look at somebody for that? So one way you can do that is if you go to on here on the advanced menu, click into people and then activists. So let's just say we wanted to look at one specific person.
Look at me, Astrid.
Oh, okay. Is that on which email address? Sorry, which email list for local?
Manchester.
For Manchester.
Or Northwest, yeah.
Let's go for Manchester.
Mm. You can just do Astrid. There's only one in Manchester.
There's only one Astrid, famously.
Well, yeah, and it's the one with the me.com, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
the top one.
There's only one, but there's two. Okay, so if we go to look at that.
Yeah, it's the same one. It's only our membership login.
So if you're looking at one individual person, you can see here whether they're subscribed or not. So at the moment, Astrid is opted in to receive emails from Manchester, but if she was unsubscribed, this would be a cross. And it's just, it's very easy to see. If you have regional access, then it should also add the region there as well to see if there's unsubscribed from the region as well. So that's how to look at one by one. And then if you want to look at everybody in your local party just as a list, then you'll need to run a report. And where do you do that? You do that from up here and then reports. And that's going to create a new one, isn't it? Okay, I'm just going to quickly bash through this. So change to query mode. Normally you would do all the, add the filters to say, this person must be a member equals yes, it must be my local party. But the key thing that you need to know is if you tick that box, unsubscribed, when you're creating the report, if that box is ticked, you will be able to see in the download everybody who's unsubscribed. So that's an important one to tick if you want to see everybody who's a member. And then if you go through to the next, oh, okay, it's demanding I do, give it a name, there we go. So if we go through to the next page, so the other thing you will then need to do to actually see whether they're subscribed or not is to specify that a column appears in the report to show you whether what their email subscription status is. So once you run the report, you'll get a list of columns, and in column 5, it will say subscribed or unsubscribed. So that's how you will be able to see, whether people are opted in or not. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yes, thank you. This is really helpful.
I come back to another question, but there is a question from Tina about if non-members can sign up to receive newsletters.
Yes, yeah. So Action Network, it's what it wants to do is to get everybody in the world signed up to your email list. That's kind of how it's designed. And so, yes, it's very much intended that you are able to email anybody who's just a supporter. Now, I suppose you need to plan how you're going to email those people, or if you're going to at all. You might decide, you know what, we only ever want to email members. And so you just need to remember every time you send an email to specify who it's going to and make sure it only goes to members. But hopefully,
one of the reasons that I asked that question is, like, particularly during COVID, we have a lot of interest from local mums and things who are only really getting their answers from us. They've tried their own MPs and other parties, aren't getting their questions answered. And I thought it was probably worth sending something out that says you don't have to be a member to find your local updates, because we're keeping up to date with all the the latest science on COVID and so on. That it might be a really good opportunity to seize to get all those people who don't want to admit I'm a Green Party member or commit, but do want to still find what is our view and what's our updates if we're a trusted source.
Yeah.
But how do I classify them because they're not a member, and how do I know what comes in? If it's, I suppose there'd have to be a question then. wouldn't it? Are you a member or a non-member, and what status?
Yeah, so I suppose if you're going to do that, then you'll probably need to create a form to capture whether they're interested or not to receive the email. So if we create a form, maybe it'd be easy if I do a here's one I made earlier type. Yeah. So in fact, let me go to Bristol. I set one up there the other day. So I created a form for people to sign up for updates from the Mayor campaign. So if we look at it, it is very basic. It's literally just, there's no real form to fill in. All it does is ask people for their name, their email address, and their postcode, and that's it. And then to opt in to email. So that's a very basic form that you would create.
So when it comes back to me, how do I know they're not a real member?
So when they sign up, then if we go actually into manage the form, if we scroll down, you can see who has signed. Oh, sorry, where is it? Form answers. Here we go. You can see who has signed the form. Now here, I'm the only person that signed the form. And okay, this report doesn't give me the information of whether they're a member or not. Okay, so what we would need to do is create a report that said whether they're members or not members. The other thing you can do is tag people when they sign that form. So here I've tagged people, anybody who signs that form I just showed you, with that. So I know they're specifically interested in the Mayor campaign for Bristol. What you could do is have a tag, and you can edit tags here. You could have a tag that says, I'm interested in, I don't know, a community newsletter or something like that. And then you would know when you come to send the email, you can send to just those people with that tag community newsletter, or as I've got here, campaign Sandy. Does that make sense?
But I think, couldn't you also, when you create a report of that form, you can add a field, member, if they're a member or not, because you can edit the report. You can add to that report, which is available there. You can create a report and add the field if they're a member. So you can actually download all the people who signed up to this form, and then in the report distinguish, you know, if they're a member or not, which then comes downloaded as an Excel file to your computer.
Okay, so I can see we've also had a question from Alex. Mm-hmm. Can we have a discussion board for active members without giving everyone access to Action Network? That's an easy one to answer. The answer is no, sorry. That's not really how the discussion board works in Action Network. So if you wanted something like that, I think you would just need to use a different tool, whatever that might be. And then Jake, you had a question.
Yes, so I'm the elections officer for Manchester Green Party. So I mostly use emailing members on a ward-wide basis to see if they'll sign up to be a paper candidate. And what I found in Civvy is that when we had boundary changes a couple of years ago, and they changed some of the wards, and like City Centre ward was split into 2 separate wards. What it didn't change on Civvy was unless they moved address, their ward stayed the same. So if they were in a ward that no longer exists, or they've moved across the boundaries, I'm just wondering whether on Action Network, whether it's easy to search by ward, and if their ward is wrong, to change their ward.
Yeah, so there's a lot of work happening behind the scenes at the moment, where we're trying to make sure that all works correctly. So anytime there is a change to an address, that basically somebody goes through the data process to assign the correct ward and borough and parliamentary constituency and all of those things. I think you will still be able to override them if you need to. I'm not 100% on that, but I think you can. Yeah, so it should be much better than what we've got at the moment, much more robust as a process. So I've had a message from Steve. So membership status not type. Okay, so the question around how we identify new members. So yes, filtering on the membership start date is how you would identify new members. And there is a way to create a report that gives you a list of all the new people that have signed up over the course of the last few days. So there is a guide of how to do that on the Green Party support website. So maybe I'll point you towards that if you wanted to look at how to create reports on new members. The other thing is if you go back and watch training session number 4, that also includes an explanation of how to create a report of new members.
The only problem I have a question about that I have with that is because that formula registers everyone who signed up, but these might also be non-members who signed up because they answered a petition or you know, subscribed to a newsletter, and so that formula I don't think will work. It will have to include the start date once that's available. It doesn't it, as a member? Yeah,
so you will also need to include a rule saying member equals yes. Okay. So I always try and start, whenever I'm doing those queries, I always try and start with member equals yes first, because that's like almost always my building block.
Yeah.
And my base, and then add things on top of it. If you forget to do that, then obviously you get yourself potentially in trouble.
There is a question about how to delete a report.
How to delete a report? Good question. So let's go and have a look at what you see on the reports page. It always takes me back up to the national email list, which isn't what I want. So let's go to my local party. And so if we click onto reports from the simple menu, you can see there's lots of reports that we've set up here, and tests and delete and all that kind of thing. And actually it could do with a good old cleanup. So there isn't a way to delete things. You can't actually delete them, but what you can do is just hide them, which is as good as deleting them, to be honest. So this one here, where I said test delete, if I click this button here, this hide button, it will make it just go away. So I've clicked that now, it will have a think. And that has now gone. I've also got test delete too, so I can hide that one as well. And then if I've accidentally hidden something that I didn't want to hide, then I can always scroll down to the bottom and click this view hidden items to go and get them back. But most of the time you'll never want to do that because you genuinely want to delete them. So if I click onto that, this page appears and I can come back here and restore the report that I didn't mean to hide if I want to, but clearly these are dead, so I won't be doing that. So that's how you do that.
Okay, thank you.
I have a few questions, unless someone else wants to ask a question. Okay, my question is, will we get also officer? I mean, this is especially interesting for as a regional level. Will we get the officer information as we had on Civi?
Yes, that will be coming fairly soon. Again, that's something that the team are working on now, trying to get their head around how they're actually going to make it work, but it's definitely coming. And so let's go back and look at, should we look at your record again, Astrid, as an example? Let's go to Manchester. Okay. So when you're looking at an activist's records, most of like the kind of Green Party related fields will generally be down here in the custom fields area. So you can see some information there. Once the full data import happens in November, there'll be much more information here. So all those fields I talked about earlier, that's where they'll be visible. But the officer roles, They will be somewhere slightly different. They will be up here in the tags area.
Ah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Because if it was just, so if we had it just here, if you had multiple roles, and lots of people do have multiple roles, then it could get a bit difficult to use. So basically there will be a tag for every single role that you hold. And at the moment, we're not 100% sure how it is that we'll update who has what role, but like I say, it's being worked out. It's probably going to be some kind of form that you have to fill in that will trigger a role change in the membership database Salesforce, and then that will be fed back into Action Network. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's great. Because at the, I mean, I can realize at the regional level, the confusion sometimes is also that people name, all the local parties name their custom fields and tags, you know, donor or whatever. So all of a sudden you have like the tag donor like 20 times. I mean, just as an example. So in Manchester, we started a naming convention like MGP, that's Manchester Green Party. But at a regional level, it's really, I'm wondering how we really distinguish between the things we really want to find out. Yeah, without when everybody calls their custom fields and everything the same name, sort of thing.
I think some of that will have to work out as we go along. Trying to predict everything is probably going to be beyond us. So things like tags, so officer roles, for example, we'll probably do something so that it's clear whether it's a regional role or a local role. Exactly what that looks like, I can't tell you yet, but it might be as simple as we just put local on the front or regional on the front.
Yeah.
Or we do as you've done here, where you've put MGP on the front. Of course, there is a problem there in that there will be more than one MGP in the country. So, you know, I guess we're just going to find out, and there might be a few bumps along the way, but
yeah,
we'll get there.
Yeah. And my second question, there are some more questions coming up, which I'll get back to, is as you could see, I was there twice in the record for Manchester, because as membership as well. And I was thinking about, because we're using this like an address book as well for the individual members, if the best way, because some people have preferred email addresses, but they are registered under their private email address as a member, but then when they do Green Party work, they use a Google address or a different, you know, whatever it is, if they don't have a, would that be then a custom field we have to create to say second email address custom field or something? So that means they won't get the emails to that address unless they register on Action Network with that second email address. But I would know that they have, in my address book, so to speak, of that person, I would know that they have a different email address as well. Or has there been any?
I don't have a definitive answer for you on that. I know that there is some thought being put into how to handle it all. And obviously at the moment, it appears here as if you are two members. And so we need to make sure that you only appear as one member. And even if you have another email address you like to use, then we just have to make sure that one is kind of the master record and then one is like an additional one. I can't tell you how that's going to work yet, sorry. But obviously it's something that needs to be addressed, because there are lots and lots of people who use lots and lots of addresses. And I'm one of them, so I'll be jumping up and down about it as well.
That's great. I mean, we just have a few minutes left. There is another comment from Molly. Civic wouldn't update officer lists, so if import to Action Network won't be accurate. Will local parties be able to update? That's a good question.
Yeah, so slightly worrying to hear that Civ is not updating when you change the officers. As far as I know, it should work, but okay, well, if it's not, that's a problem. And so, yes, anything that's currently in Civ as officer roles will be transferred across to Action Network once the full integration happens. And as you've said there, the question about whether we'll be able to update it ourselves, I think there'll be some sort of form that allows us to do that.
Thank you.
Great. So a very short last question, and then if people want to join the lunch session with the networking, they will have to log back into the main conference again. And if after lunch people want to join the EGM, then they have to log into the new EGM Zoom link, just to let you all know, which I emailed this morning, and it is, if you registered for the EGM, is also on the events page. But any brief questions for Andy right now?
No.
I think you answered all questions, and really
everybody knows how to do everything in Action Network now. That's very good. Well done, everyone.
Actually, no, I did have one. It took me a minute to find my microphone. Sorry. It was only quickly that, is there like a 24-hour, oh my God, I pressed the wrong button number? You know, the fear is, of course, that this is something we could, if we screw it up, we could screw it up very publicly. And I wonder if there are emergency helplines when we're in the middle of going into Activist Network where we, oh, I pressed the wrong button. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of fail safes, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say there's that many fail safes, to be honest. I think, once you've pressed send, and that's the end of it, I'm afraid. There's no way to recall emails.
But is there a help, like an online help chat, or, you know, I can't work out how to make this work, or, you know, if it's time sensitive, maybe it's something we really need to get out in an emergency or something, and something's glitchy. Is there ways to get that resolved fairly quick? If
you've got an emergency, then probably the most responsive people will be your field organisers.
Okay.
They're people that you're most likely to be able to get hold of at short notice. If you try the digital team, then it will probably be several months before you hear anything back, you know, without being too mean. If you contact me, then I will be as helpful as I can be, but I can't promise to be super responsive. You know, I'll get back to you.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you.
I mean, if there's an emergency, you can contact me still. I'm for the Northwest. I have access to everything, and I can help in an emergency.
You are going to regret that, Astrid.
Well, yeah, no, I am already helping quite a number of people. I mean, I don't want to become an Action Network hotline personally, but there we are. But just to
you needed a few more titles.
Yeah, just to add that basically you can very quickly always send yourself a test email before you send out anything. You know, the emails I send out for the Northwest, I'm testing about 10 times, and have someone else check them, that all the links work, all the buttons work, etc. So before you send it out, send yourself a test email, check all the links and buttons you wrote in your email, and it you know, you send the test email, comes within a second in your inbox. So it's so much faster than Civi and so much easier to check your own work. And then you always see when you select members, yes, how many people are you? If you all of a sudden you only have 20 people you're addressing in your email, you know, there's something wrong with the formula, because it should be sent 73. So there's a lot of checking functions in Action Network, and yeah, I mean, you write polite emails, so what can go wrong?
I don't know, late nights, you know.
Yeah. All right, great. So we should end this session, because people can go back to lunch and then go later to the EGM, and we give Andy back his Saturday if you have one. Thanks so much for coming, Andy. Really great.
No, it's been fun. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.